Welcome back to the second episode of the TimeOut podcast. Today we have Carter,
Mr. Carter
as a guest. Introduce yourself.
My name is Carter.
Any more else to add?
I'm American.
You're American.
I'm American.
So yeah, of course today we're going to be talking about, we're just going on the rants about
You're
America.
gonna shit talk your country for the next
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Shit talking America, and we have Carter to, fact check us.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, actually before we jump right into it, how you been?
I'm good. I'm good.
How
great.
is life?
It's good. Lot going on.
Not a lot going on.
No, a lot going on.
A lot going on.
Yeah, a lot
IB,
going on. Yeah, IB. You live.
Are you doing your live?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm
Wait,
doing
with
a
who?
couple songs. Alex and Dylan and Peter.
Ah, interesting. How is it practicing?
It's good actually.
It's on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
It's
No,
soon.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday.
Are you going?
Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah.
I got the tickets.
Yeah.
Supporting my friends. Anyway, let's
get to
jump
it.
right into it.
Was Joe Biden done so far in this term?
Joe Biden.
That's such a big question.
Sleepy Joe.
Well, I mean, let me think. I think he's done a lot. I think a lot of it maybe goes under the radar because it's not as newsworthy as the
Right.
stuff that maybe Trump did. But I mean, he did a lot when COVID was bad. He did a lot to kind of get the country under control and get people vaccinated, which Trump was doing the opposite of.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of the withdrawal of Afghanistan?
Wait.
It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. I think that, we had our troops in there for decades and nothing was really changing much, but I don't know that I necessarily am a fan of the way it was handled. It was very quick, without much warning. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes and it's a complicated issue, but I think that the quickness of it definitely had some negative impacts both for our people and for the people there.
Oh yeah, 100%. Anyway, how would you rate Joe Biden as a president?
On 1 to 10.
Yeah, give it a 1 to 10
F.
rating. Give it a 1 to 10 rating.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily the most revolutionary president ever.
Oh yeah, of course
I think there's some negatives to be said simply for the fact that he's another old guy, old white guy.
Yeah.
It's I think we're kind of holding ourselves back a bit, but at the same time, I do think he gets a bad rap, and I think he has done a lot of good, especially picking up the pieces after the guy before him. Mm-hmm. So I'd give him a solid 7, maybe 7.5.
Because clearly I'm not American, but from outsider perspective, you don't really see the impact of his policy out there. So what specific thing that he does make you think he's decent president?
I'm trying to think. I had a whole list of things in my head.
It's to pick one.
I have some things here.
Right, go ahead.
He did some modest gun reform.
Well, it's better than nothing, I guess. You kind of need some more work than that,
explain.
though. Yeah. Clearly, given the events since the start of 2023, that's not the biggest success.
Wait, no, I think they just expanded a bit of background checks, and that's the
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that should be done ages ago.
I
that's
feel
the bare minimum.
That is a bare minimum.
In theory, the background checks are pretty solid, but they're just
There's also the private seller loophole.
No, in theory, but they're just not enforced well at all.
The fact that people with mental issues can own guns.
They're not supposed to be able to, but they can because the rules aren't properly enforced or kept in place, especially in states like Texas and Florida.
Texas.
Yeah, Texas.
I don't know. That definitely should be done ages ago.
I do think it should be made more strict and made more I mean, there's no reason someone should have to ever buy an automatic weapon.
Yeah, from my personal view, gun should be illegal. Just
I agree, but in a country where it is so ingrained into the culture, making guns just immediately illegal.
But don't you think?
Probably.
Oh no, yeah, definitely not just like
Yeah.
boom, illegal
Yeah.
now. But like, don't you think having gun as part of your culture kind of?
No, I don't like it.
Yeah,
It could be
okay.
like Mozambique and put the AK-47 on their flag.
Like I don't think there's any reason that we should be selling automatic weapons. Like, why would you ever need an automatic weapon to defend yourself or something?
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
it like the
It's
whole
like-
idea of it is that like if there's ever a tyrannical government, then the people will be able to take up arms and
The whole point of the United States system is that we keep politicians in check because
having
They-
guns.
no, not having guns. No, I mean that's a stupid argument because
Right.
the
It
whole
should be like
system
the
is
French and
built
have a
around the
guillotine.
fact that that's not going to happen. Also, I think that, and this is my own view here, but I think that the same people who are claiming that are the same people who are complaining about the fact that Biden was rightfully elected into office and claiming that the election was stolen or something, and they're the
Right.
same people who are like, we
Right.
need guns to defend our rights from the government, and they're the same people who are kind of who stormed the Capitol.
That's a
when-
crazy statement.
Yeah.
We need gun to protect our own rights.
Yeah.
and you think Trump's a better president?
Huh?
You think Trump's a better president than Biden? You said that to me.
Okay, well, no, that's not what I said. I said I don't think Trump as a president is as bad as people said.
I think he is. I think there's a few reasons for that. It caused a lot of problems for international relations with the United States because of
Oh,
the
yeah.
methods with which he can
Pull out.
handle diplomacy. It was harsh, and there's one example I can think of where that was good, and that's with NATO. Like, he got countries to actually give the money they're supposed to give
Yeah,
to
that's
NATO because U.S. was kind of carrying the slack.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he spread misinformation a lot. There's a lot of evidence to support the fact that he actually was involved in the attack on the Capitol to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
Inciting violence on the Capitol, planning to have his vice president assassinated because his vice president
Wait,
claimed
I
the
don't know
election
about
wasn't
that part.
stolen. No, like Mike Pence, right?
Right.
Was, he's conservative obviously, but he was saying, I don't know, Biden won the election fair. Like,
Yeah.
that was a fair election.
Yeah.
And then Trump wasn't happy about that.
Trump could get him killed for this?
There was, I mean, it's not 100% sure, but they had hearings about it. They've had
right.
hearings about all that sort of thing. And Pence, someone tried to grab Pence and put him in a car
Yeah.
on that same day. And
Yeah, I
it's
saw
like the theories that Trump may have been involved to some extent. But I haven't watched that hearing all the way through, so I don't know for sure what all the evidence is. But that's just one thought on
Right.
what
He also
happened.
pulled out the Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But like, okay, morally, he's an awful person and he's done a
Yeah.
lot of bad things, right? But to me, I feel like he have a more clear direction where he want America to go compared to, Obama.
I see that for.
Yeah, but it's a bad direction.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think yes, in terms of, I think he did have a more clear direction than Biden, but I also think the direction he's taking it in wasn't, this is what I think is best for America. It was, this is how I make the most money. This is how I get what I want.
Well, he's a businessman. after
Yeah,
all.
but that's not what a president should be, in my eyes. A president
That's
should be someone who is working towards the betterment of the country. And I think regardless of whether you agree that it was the right way to do it or not, I think Obama that was his goal in mind, much more than it was Trump's.
Oh yeah, I feel like to Trump, he tried to do as much as possible in his presidency and don't really think about the consequences after that.
Yeah,
right?
well, I don't think he really cared about the consequences, to be fair. I think he was, going for he's upholding societal systems that
Right.
exploit people beneath him so that he can make money off of them. And that's something that I think Obama was fighting to undo. And I think that's something that a lot of the early year, like the first year of Biden's presidency, was working to undo after Trump had kind of undid a lot of what Obama had done.
Yeah.
Like Obamacare, for example.
Okay. So do you think that's why Joe Biden don't get enough recognition? Because for the first, probably half of his presidency, just trying to unfuck the Trump situation.
I think that's part of it, and I
Right.
think part of it is that you know, and there's something to be said about the Democratic Party not being firm enough and not being radical enough. And taking it too easy. But I think that Biden is definitely more mellow with his policies, and he's working to actually compromise, which maybe means that, I mean, the stuff that blows up in the news is the stupid shit, right?
Yeah.
And Biden doesn't do as much stupid shit as
Oh,
Trump.
yeah.
So
100%.
it's like the stuff that he does do, the stuff that he is actually making a difference. It's just not publicly. You have to look for the stuff. It doesn't come through on your news feed as well.
That's the 24 hour news cycle, just like a reactionary, just like
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But okay, one thing I don't like how Obama did, right? Because last episode we kind of talked about my opinion on Trump and Obama.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like he's trying to. Okay, well, first of all, like to me, he doesn't have a clear direction. Like, for example, he's trying to, because China and America have been like in conflict for however long, but at the same time, Obama trying to maintain the relationship and the international trading while telling the world there are trying to punish China for all the inhuman stuff they've been doing.
Well, okay, so here's my thoughts on that. I feel like the way to handle when diplomatic relations is obviously a very complicated thing. It's very difficult to balance.
Yeah.
But in that case, I think that's one example where the United States is attempting to enforce human rights and make sure that around the world, people are not being exploited, children are not being exploited, that the human rights stay intact. But simply antagonizing a country, you do have to do, to a certain extent, some level of dealing with your enemy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
You have to keep those international relations, at least to a certain point, alive, because if you don't, that facilitates negotiation and the ability to compromise. Not that human rights should be something that's compromised on, but something that's like where you can actually still have a discussion with the leaders of those countries, and instead of going to war over every issue. And I think if there's any issue to go to war over, human rights is probably one of the better ones. But in best case scenario, you are fighting and advocating for human rights and for, against international crimes while still being able to maintain world peace.
But I feel like there were no actual punish at all during that period though. Of course, those actions and events that happened in China and Hong Kong, all that kind of stuff, are publicly shamed upon the world, right? But there's no actual consequences.
I walk the walk.
I think that's fair. I think possibly we could and should be doing more in terms of actually getting in there and making a difference. But I mean, we have done that for other issues, not as justification for not doing it there, but when it comes to world terrorism, for example.
So you see America's role as a global police force as a positive thing?
Well, that's no, not necessarily. I think that as undeniably as a country with a lot of influence, international influence, possibly more than any other country on the planet, when we do something that affects everyone, I think that we have to use that. We can't just, it's impossible to just not have that power. You have to use it for good.
But the thing is, there was a jump the gun before anything actually happened though. That's why people be talking bad about them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that does kind of go against the philosophy of the United States government and justice system, which is, innocent until proven guilty and use the least drastic means possible. Don't punish crimes before they're committed. But, I mean, that's a complicated issue, and it's definitely something where mistakes get made, and you have to hold people accountable, but it's gonna happen. It's so difficult to manage and balance all of that stuff.
Yeah, but to me, what they're doing is the desire to have maintain the control to those developing countries. by having so
Yeah.
many troops in there, and
I think
all
in
the
certain
economic
cases that's
support.
I think in certain cases that's true. You know, there's definitely an extent to which we go into other countries and put troops in there when maybe we don't need to.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you know, there are organizations that are run by the states that are purely or mainly funded by the states that are purely for the betterment of developing countries and for international development, like the World Health Organization, which is started in the States and primarily funded by the States, and it has countless projects for any country you can possibly think of, helping to increase medical aid and jobs and you know, access to clean water and food. And you have other organizations that are dedicated to helping, you know, with treatment of specific diseases like AIDS. You have, just within the United States, leading universities and research facilities that are leading the world in research for medical development and space exploration and climate change and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot that the US does that's bad, and that needs to be taken into account, and that needs to be addressed and changed. But you do have to look at it on a large scale and recognize that it does do a lot of good as well.
Oh yeah.
But couldn't you see that as just a way of expanding global influence and soft power and stuff?
Well, I don't think the U.S. is ever going to not have global influence, and I don't think that's
they're
entirely
always
within.
trying to get more.
I feel like they already have more global influence than most other countries. I don't know that. Like, it's either you don't do anything with it in an attempt to have every country be fully independent, in which case Russia or China would probably just do the same thing anyway. Or you know, there's something to be said about the United States pushing its own ideology, but personally I feel like the United States' ideology, at least on paper, is better than that of Russia or China's, and I think that working to help people around the world to get the rights that they are owed that maybe they don't have is not a bad thing. It's like better than sitting back and doing nothing with the influence that you have.
I know you have a take on this. Go ahead.
I mean, they use that as a justification to do a lot of bad things.
I agree, and I think that needs to be addressed, but I don't think the answer is to just step back and not do anything. I think we need to change.
It's definitely not stick your nose where it doesn't belong either.
How do you dictate that? Like, what counts as sticking your nose where it doesn't belong?
I mean, I guess you could go back to pre 9/11.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people argue that 9/11 was a result of American diplomats in the Middle East.
I think 9/11 was a terrorist attack by a radical group of.
Yeah, but
Well, it is a terrorist attack, but it's motivated by, you know, certain.
I don't think it was motivated by that. I think that.
Don't think?
No, I think well, first of all, 9/11 was a lot worse than it was supposed to be. It was actually only supposed to be. Well, obviously it's a terrorist attack. The point of it was to instill terror. Like, the point of it is to instill fear.
Yeah.
It definitely succeeded in doing that, but it wasn't supposed to be as devastating as it was. The towers crashing and completely demolishing themselves was a byproduct of crashing the plane. Like, that was the original goal of the terrorists. But I don't think that the United States diplomacy encouraged the terrorists to do the attack. I think it gave them an excuse to do it, but I think that they were going to do it anyway. Like, if you think about it, people who are terrorists are not thinking rationally, oh darn, the United States did this and now we need to kill everyone on this plane and everyone in this building. It's people who are radicalized and the people in charge seek to hold power over the people beneath them and brainwash them and then lead them to doing insane stuff like that. Them doing that was not a result. Terrorist organizations existed and have existed before 9/11 and before the United States well before the diplomacy could have had an effect on 9/11. Like, the terrorist organizations existed. They're looking for excuses to rally people who maybe are angry at the United States, which is, fair. The United States' issues with international diplomacy could absolutely contribute to people being more willing to join organizations like that.
100%.
However, I still believe that the fault rests solely on the people who committed those acts, and particularly the people in charge, because they are going to work to get people on their side regardless of what the United States is doing, and work to,
don't get me wrong. I'm not shifting the blame to America for 9/11, right?
No, I understand.
Yeah, but that's definitely all the terrorists themselves. But I feel like all this thing America did to those developing countries for the past 50 years, I feel like it definitely motivate more people to join their side.
Yeah,
it's like
possible.
It's well established that they funded militant groups.
Yeah.
So, and that's also,
they're doing it now. They're pouring billions of dollars into the Israeli military every year, and
why do they do that?
Yeah, I have no idea. And then they publish stuff like, "Look, we donated $500,000 to Pakistan. Look at us," and it's like, you're putting in $20 billion into the Israeli military,
another thing
which is
Trump did,
exploiting
strengthened ties with Israel.
Which is, in this day and age, I feel like we should be supporting Pakistan when it comes to that conflict. They're being exploited and people are being killed, and pouring billions of dollars into the Israeli military and then publicizing how you're supporting Pakistan through your $500,000 a year is shady and dishonest and harmful. Palestine. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Did I say Pakistan? I meant Palestine. I meant Palestine, not Pakistan. My bad. Yeah, Palestine. Yeah, Palestine. My bad. Yeah, Palestine. Pouring billions of dollars into the Israeli military, publicly announcing that you gave $500,000.
I just don't understand why America always like to put themselves in other people's business and make the whole situation even worse.
I don't think that's always what they do. I think sometimes they get involved and they make a lot of stuff better. And I think that stuff doesn't get recognized as much because the positive effects obviously aren't as, it's not, we should be talking about the negative stuff because that's the stuff that we can fix and that's the stuff that's harming real people. But that doesn't mean that the positive stuff doesn't exist or that it's not important. I don't think that the United States completely removing themselves from international involvement is the answer. We're doing a lot of good. We just have to do more good and less of the stuff that is causing harm. Because not everything the United States does internationally is for the sake of capitalistic gain. A lot of it is, but not all of it.
What's your opinion on capitalism, Thomas?
It's a loaded question.
I know, and I know you have a lot to talk about.
I don't even know how to answer that. Just as
Take
a
a
whole,
direction.
As a whole,
I could start.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
I think with regards to the United States, I think capitalism is promoted a lot in the education system, in the ways that people are brought up. I don't think capitalism is necessarily the best system that we could have. I think it's also really difficult to change the entire system in a country like that that's so large, over 300 million people, and you can't just completely switch the way that people make money and jobs work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we could work to implement more policies that are more in line with socialism and workers owning the means of production, because at the moment the working class and lower class people are exploited, and most of the stuff that they should be making, most of the money that they should be making is going to a bureaucratic upper class that is exploiting them and taking them.
But I don't think that can ever be changed though. If people willing to work for that money, they would just keep going.
I suppose, but I think that there's a misconception about the benefits of capitalism, because the people who push for capitalism are the people who are benefiting from it, the people at the top. It's all about keeping the rich rich.
That is true.
There are plenty of people that aren't currently profiting off capitalism, but they still advocate for it because they believe that they someday will.
Yeah,
The American dream.
The American dream,
Yeah.
yep. And it's this misconception that it's the best system we could possibly have because everyone is paid for the amount of work that they do, but that's not actually what happens. And in reality, I mean, I'm not a communist, but if you look at actual original Marxist theory, it's not really that similar to what Stalin or Mao.
Well, communism is just ideology. That can never happen in the real world, though.
I agree. Well, it has happened successfully in smaller countries, like really small countries,
Yeah.
like a few 10,000 people maybe. I don't think it would work on a scale of hundreds of millions, which is why I'm not communist. But if you look at Marxist theory, it's very different from what Stalin and Mao actually advocated for and implemented. The main core of Marxist theory is that the workers own the means of production, so that they are not exploited by an upper class.
But you can it's still so hard to value like the worth of production.
Yeah.
Like who decide those things?
Well, that's the point. Is that that's what makes it difficult, right?
Yeah.
How do you enforce something like that?
Yeah.
So I think that to implement those, more because in a perfect system, people would still be able to choose what jobs they do. They'd still be able to earn money depending on how dedicated they are to their work.
Yeah.
But it just would be in a system where people are actually able to make money if they don't start with money. And so I think that to properly implement that into a country as large and as developed as the United States, because keep in mind the United States is still very young, so like 200 years old, more or less, and there's a lot of room for change, and it's still changing very rapidly. So I think now is the time where we really need to start advocating for and voting for policies that are going to allow people who don't start out lucky or wealthy to get to that point. That's why universities have quotas for the amount of minority groups they need represented.
Yeah.
It's not because it's not some reverse racism thing. It's to even the playing field a bit because, people who are white and male already have so much of an advantage that it's like, okay, we're giving some people a chance because someone else probably will have passed them up just because of their skin color.
So it definitely has to be a gradual process. Like, I think a lot of the issue that came with the communist countries that they were all forcefully seized through violence and revolution. That's just not a good basis to start a new country.
Yeah, I agree. I don't agree with the philosophy that radical change or change at all only comes through revolution, especially in a country like the States where it's a democratic republic. We're able to enact change through our voices. It's just most people are not that intelligent and don't actually recognize, or if they're not intelligent, maybe if they're intelligent, they're ignorant.
Well, most people are
misinformed.
short-sighted. They don't see the long-term effects.
That's one of the main problems with capitalism. Like, it encourages a higher profit year after year. So if a company is growing, it means it's either decreasing quality or increasing prices.
And that's one of the main reasons that the United States is one of the main contributors to climate change, is because companies see this as how I make the most money, but not whether or not the company will even exist in 20 years, be able to exist in 20 years in a world where, people are refugees from countries where it's just not possible to live anymore and all sorts of stuff like that.
I mean, I just feel like you cannot expect people to value other more than yourself.
And I think that ties with.
Is that innate or is that bred into us?
I think it's a mix. I think that I think a lot of it is nurture. Considering
I do feel like it's a quality of human.
Because
being selfish.
Because you think that but I think it's possible to raise humans to not be that way. Because if you look at the polarization of the states between the progressive left and the conservative right, you have people who are, whether or not you agree with it, fighting for radical change for the sake of other people, versus people who are fighting for keeping the status quo and keeping it the way that it is, which maybe isn't best for everyone. And it ties into this philosophy that when people are privilege for long periods of time and it's ingrained into society,
Yeah.
when people start advocating for equality and starts moving towards equality, the people who are privileged start to feel as though they're being oppressed, even though they're not. So I think a lot of I've seen this modern internet phenomenon where men feel like they're being exploited or like attacked by feminism,
yeah.
which is kind of ridiculous, because the whole point of feminism is not just increase women's power. It's
equality.
Let's make sure that both sides are on, not even both sides, let's just make sure everyone is on an even playing field, and that all of these strict gender roles that limit what people are able to do, both men and women, and what they feel like they can be, are gone, so that people can just be judged based on their merit as people.
But like at this point, that's part of the stereotype, isn't it? I feel like it takes time. Like if you're trying to rush it too hard, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, like they've been fighting for hundreds of years. Like what is too fast at this point? Like
I guess.
Like at a certain point, you do have to start pushing for more radical change, and part of that is, if the status quo isn't going to change, we need something to offset it, at least for now, so that we can give oppressed people a voice to be able to advocate for their own change. Because if it's just white people saying black people are oppressed, that doesn't do much when the black people can't actually. Does that make sense? Like you are, in a way, if you are privileged and you're constantly speaking about issues, obviously you should educate yourself and you should support people who are less fortunate than yourself.
Yeah.
But the best way to do that sometimes is to step back and let them speak about it, let them talk about their own issues. And I think a lot of people tend to consider themselves advocates or allies, and what they're really doing is just pulling away from the attention that people.
The aesthetic of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's for appearances and it's for popularity, and they're taking away
or even
from.
just to fit in.
Yeah, to fit in, and they're taking up space that should be occupied by the actual people who are suffering from the systems that are in place. People of color, women, you know.
But like in this case, I don't think black people can ever reach equality without the help of the white people.
Oh, I agree. No. Obviously, we need to support. Everyone needs to support each other, and everyone needs to work towards as much as we can eradicating the systems that are in place that uphold racism. But part of that means letting them speak sometimes, and I think people don't do that. Like that doesn't mean we stop helping. It means that we're helping as supporters rather than leading a cause that should be led by the people who are actually marginalized.
I feel like a lot of the policy changes that are aiming to fix that stuff just kind of see the superficial values of it without actually getting to the root of it.
Yeah.
Like even affirmative action, like that's not a long-term solution. It's just fixing. Like you gotta fix like the entire system for it to actually be equitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of it's tough because a lot of it isn't on paper. It's not necessarily visible in a bill or something like that. It's ingrained into the way that society works and functions, and it's built off of capitalism, and it's built off of a history of slavery, and there's stuff that you have to do. Like I've seen people are advocating for reparations to be paid to Native American people due to the economic strife they still face now, post-genocide, post being forced out of their homes and being forced to migrate and colonization and all of that. That still has a very real effect on people living today who are indigenous, people who today don't start off as well as someone from a privileged background, and it stems back hundreds of years, and people just see it now as they need to get themselves out of their own situation, but it's not as easy for some people, you know what I mean? And I don't know that paying reparations is a bad thing. I don't think it's the only solution. You can't just give people money and expect it to fix itself. You have to enact change and work to actually change things.
So, but what practical change you think must be done to raise the living standard? for those minority.
I think there's a few things we can do. One definitely is investing money and helping to offset economic imbalance. But I think another would be improving the quality of public affordable schools, decreasing the cost of university.
Education definitely a big part.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about the cost of university in the States lately as I'm applying there.
They're ridiculous.
It's a complicated thing though, because I think a lot of why the tuition in the United States is so high is mainly for appearance purposes, because the United States offers
exclusivity.
Possibly that I'm getting to that, but the tuition, the United States offers more financial aid for college than any other country that I'm aware of.
Well, they should.
Yeah, they should. And take MIT for example,
right,
which has a tuition of over $60,000 a year, really expensive, and yet over 90% of the students that go to MIT graduate without any student debt at all, which means that not everyone is paying $60,000 a year, because most people can't afford $60,000 a year, and MIT is need blind, which means they don't admit you based on your ability to pay the tuition, and they offer a lot of financial aid. So why have the tuition so high in the first place if they're just going to lower it for 95% of their students? And my thought is that what's most likely the case is that it's this misconception that expensive equals better, and if they have a higher price, they look more competitive. But pretty much all of MIT's tuition, financial aid, is paid through their endowment, which they earn interest on every single year. And students who go to MIT, the amount that they make off of the tuition they're actually paid from their students is tiny compared to what they make off of
but I
their
feel
endowment
like
every year.
people who live under the poverty line don't even think about going.
That's what I mean.
That's a problem.
MIT could lower their tuition to zero, and they would still make money every single year. They would still make a
like
profit.
people see the 60K.
Yeah.
They're like no.
Yeah, so my point being that MIT, that I believe that simply whether or not it actually is unrealistic for people, I think the fact that it looks that way is upholding this idea of you need to be rich to have these opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be much better if I honestly think that MIT tomorrow could lower their cost of tuition to $0 and they would still make money just off of their endowment is over $20 billion. The interest,
MIT itself.
yeah, the interest
That's
they
crazy.
earn off of that is way more than the cost of tuition for the 1,000 students that get admitted every year. Like that's only, that's it's insane, and a lot of that money goes into to the research they're doing and into improving the systems of education, their facilities, their labs. I mean, MIT is the #1 rated college in the world, and almost none of that is paid for through actual tuition. The only thing the tuition is doing is making them look more expensive and making people hesitate to even apply in the first place, even if it's a good fit for them. So
But I don't think tuition is the only problem here, though. Like, people can get into MIT, of course, have a good educational background, and we all know those are expensive.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like you need to start at a certain, you need to have certain financial state to even get to that point that you are able to get into MIT.
It's not that. That's true. That's true. That's another issue. That's where I think improving the quality of public schools comes in.
Yeah.
Putting more, like, people don't like to be taxed a lot, but like, I mean, the people who complain about taxes are the same people who benefit the most from, like, the same people who complain about high taxes are the same people who deny COVID and then get their hospital bills paid for. You know what I mean? By taxes. It's like, I think more money should go into, there's a lot of money isn't going necessarily to the right places, and I think that a lot more taxpayer dollars should be put towards better public education, which with more opportunities, more options, more curriculums. Imagine if every student had the opportunity to do IB or AP in their school. If they had if their teachers were actually paid enough to care, and if they had facilities that worked and means of transportation and opportunities to get involved in extracurriculars, everyone's applications would be stronger, and the students that really have that talent and intelligence can thrive, and the students that maybe aren't as academically apt can get the assistance that they need to get them where they want to be in life. And it won't be as much of a if you're like, it's not enough for colleges to just admit a certain number of black people a year. Like that is helping to an extent. But at the same time, the root of the issue comes from the fact that they don't have access from a young age to the development and education that they need in order to thrive and get to where they want to be in life.
So I also feel like that's boosting inequality though, having like a quota of amount of, black students.
It's kind of dehumanizing as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you really want them to be equal, I feel like they should get put on an even playing field.
Yeah, but the only issue with that is that at the moment they're not on an even playing field at all.
Right.
It's a temporary solution.
It's a temporary. Well,
I suppose
to an extent, but the thing is, there's already so much ingrained racism in the United States that a person applying to even with the quotas in place, a person applying to college who's white has so much higher of a chance of getting in than someone who's black, even with the quotas. And so it's not creating this unequal thing where now black people are more likely to get in to make up for history. It's we're giving them a chance that they might not even have, because names that are traditionally used for black people, if that's on an application, you're statistically less likely to get into college. They go for an interview or they see your face and you're black, you're statistically less likely to get into college. And it doesn't just come from their educational background. These are people who are equally as qualified, if not more qualified. And so having a certain number that they have to admit means that they are forced to honestly consider every applicant and give those people a chance. And those people who are up there who don't get in because of their skin color or their gender or
racism is embedded in your brain at this point.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You have to, everyone who is white in the United States has to constantly work to educate themselves and fight against it, and if not, you're just part of the problem at this point.
it's an active.
Yeah, you can't passively not contribute, because you are passively contributing to it. Everything, just living as a white person in the States, you are benefiting, whether you realize it or not, from racist systems and from systems built upon history of exploitation and racism and slavery. And so you have to actively work to offset that and do what you can, protest, advocate, vote for policies, and elevate black voices in order to offset how you're benefiting from it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something I find really amusing is that the US spends some of the most money per capita on healthcare. Yeah, it has one of the poorest systems in the developed world.
Well, it depends what you mean by poor system. I agree that economically it's not a great system because people have to spend so much on healthcare, but in terms of how good the actual healthcare is, it's unmatched. US is the best in the world, pretty much. In terms
but I will argue if 60% of the population cannot afford it.
Yeah, no, that's my point. It's it's either you go broke or you die, which isn't great options. Yeah. Which is why I think Obamacare was good, because it allowed people to, while some people ended up in debt from Obamacare, they were actually capable of paying it off and living lives.
Well, what actually was Obamacare?
It was a sort of partially, to my understanding, a partially socialist way.
Well, it's basically making the rich people pay more.
Yeah, it's making it's increasing. It did increase taxes to an extent, I believe, but it essentially implemented a system where you could have part of your hospital bills paid, or you didn't have to pay them all right away.
Yeah.
And so that you could, while it came, you could argue it came at the expense of people who were richer having to pick up the slack of it. I think it was worth it because
Do people actually have a problem with that?
yeah.
Jesus.
No, it's I think Obamacare got a lot of flack that did. I don't think it's perfect, but it's absolutely a step in the right direction.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
not going to
that's-
implement a perfect system right away. It can always be changed. And I don't think the right approach was Trump completely getting rid of it, followed by Biden bringing it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Would you consider yourself a patriotic person?
patriotic.
Ooh.
I think patriotic is just a nice way of saying nationalist. So not particularly. I don't hate the United States. I don't love it either. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm not a fan of
A lot of
having-
things to improve for sure.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I'm not a fan of blind support for your country, for
Okay.
any country. I don't like the fact that when I went to school in the States, I had to stand up every morning and recite the Pledge of
Seriously?
Allegiance.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
Do they even do that in China?
I don't think so.
No, it's weird too for students who go to that school who aren't American, who are just standing there awkwardly while all their American friends are reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I think the United States is extremely, extremely, extremely religious.
No, I think it's important to have pride in your country, but like you need to acknowledge when there's a problem.
I think you need to have educated pride. Pride on its own is
Well,
like,
of course, to
it's
a
like,
certain extent.
It's like faith. It's like you are fully like I'm proud that I'm from the United States without maybe recognizing what that actually means. And I think a lot of people are proud to be American and they're doing absolutely nothing to actually fix the issues that America is
Okay.
causing or the issues in America. And
Yeah.
that's bad pride in my
Sure,
opinion.
sure.
Like that's harmful and it's contributing to issues versus pride that's like, okay, I am American and I recognize that I'm American and I'm proud of what my country does well and I'm actively working to fix what it does not. And that is pride. You have pride in that. In being a member of a country that is one of the primary, like one of the most developed countries in the world, with one of the highest diversity rates in the world, and one of the most, developed systems in terms of its politics and being able to give people representation. It's obviously not perfect. The electoral system needs a lot of work, and there's a lot of ingrained societal racism, sexism, homophobia, all forms of oppression. But that's the case in a lot of places. And as far as in the whole world goes, the United States is pretty good, especially considering how long we've been around. So we're just working towards bettering that, recognizing the faults and working to improve them, because when you're American, you have more power than anyone to be able to do that. You have a vote, you have a voice. So yeah, you just got to use it for good and to make the bad stuff.
Alright, last question to sum it up. So what's your take on America?
What's my take on America?
Yeah, in one sentence. In one sentence. Go.
Perfection.
Perfection.
No issues. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's not fine.
I think it's just too much power influence for a country to handle.
Yeah, I think that, God, it's like, it's tough for me to think of a country, like, this is a weird way of putting it, but it's tough for me to think of a country I'd rather have the influence in.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, because to be honest, let's look at when Britain had that influence. What happened there? Worldwide colonization.
I do agree. It's too big of a responsibility
Well,
for anyone.
it should be spread out evenly. It shouldn't go to a single entity.
I agree, but that's just not realistic or something that could be done. Like you can't just spontaneously distribute power across the globe. So you have to do what you can with what you have, and it's not fair, but
Yeah,
well,
I
if
do.
you have
I do.
that power, you should be actively trying to.
But I do think there
redistribute
need
it.
to be a leader.
I don't know like how would you suggest doing that?
In the case of the entire country.
Yeah, like how would the United States just redistribute its power across the globe? Like the thing is that, I mean, that's kind of what, to an extent, what we're doing when we are in those cases where we are helping to develop countries and improve their economic systems and give the people there job opportunities. I mean, all of that stuff contributes to a country's wealth, a country's influence, their ability to be independent. That's giving that country power. And sometimes it's at our own cost. Not like we're suffering from it or anything. It's just we're spending money on it is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the US puts billions upon billions upon billions of dollars into international aid every single year. And not all of it's perfect, and a lot of what we do is absolutely for our own gain, but a lot of it isn't, and a lot of it is working to, you know, get those countries to where they want to be and to benefit the people in them, which is a good thing. And I think that's what we should be using our international influence for. That's not what it's always used for, but that's what I think it should be used for.
No, I just feel it's such a hard spot to be in. I think they're doing a fine job, to be honest. Like anybody else, they'll do either the same or worse.
I agree with that. I mean, look at the international influence that Russia and China have. I mean, look at like that's. I mean, like Russia's the war with Ukraine is still going on, and that's another thing with Trump's presidency, right? Is how much he's like America, capitalism, anti-communism. Meanwhile, I'm best buddies with Putin, but yeah, I don't know. I think the United, like, it's the same thing with Biden, right? The stuff that he does that's good doesn't make it into the press because the good stuff doesn't make it into the press, and the less immediately destructive stuff doesn't make it into the press. So the stuff that the United States does internationally that's good, I think, is similar, but you absolutely have to acknowledge the fact that the people who are there's a lot of issues. It's the same the other way. There's a lot of issues the United States causes that don't get as much press and don't get talked about as much. And a lot of stuff that I don't hear about until years after it's already been happening, and I'm shocked. And it's just like, you have to actively search for stuff like that. You have to look for the bad to know what you're actually fighting to make better.
Right. All right, let's wrap it up here, and we're going to see you guys next week again. Thank you, Carter.
Yeah.
For sharing your point of view on America. And yeah, that's it. See ya.